Hello and welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a look at EdgeTX 2.11 or 2.11 Release Candidate 1. And before I get into any material, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that Release Candidate 1 means it's not production yet. So the recommendation generally is don't fly with this stuff unless you're willing to risk it and wait for the developers to do their thing. You know, they'll go through their testing. Everybody that, can test and verify settings and options on the radios, they'll give feedback, and then they go through this release candidate process and then drop the release candidate moniker off the end. They'll say, okay, it's just 2.11.0 now. That's when you want to go ahead and put it on your radio. But until then, it's recommended you don't fly with it. I'm going to put that right up front in all these videos because it's inevitable that every time I do like a early feature request, some developer comes in and says, well, it's not recommended. Fine, let's just cover that right out of the gate so we're not late with it. Okay, so with that out of the way, release candidate 1 for 2.11, some really interesting changes out there. And I'm going to start off, you guys can see I've got throttle high on both of these. We're going to start off with the very first one. Before we power the radios on, I'll let you see what's going on. So it's one of the things I noticed right away. So we'll bring up the radios, turn them on, and notice on this one, we got a throttle warning, throttle not idle. And on this one, we've got throttle warning, throttle not idle in the bright red. So that's a change where they really changed the color of the screen, indicating, hey, something's wrong here. You might want to check into that. And also notice the LEDs, they're both red too, indicating a failed state, something wrong with your checklist. So we bring our throttle down to 0, then that clears the warning. And of course, the LED changes to green. And we'll bring this down to 0, that clears the warning, and that changes to green as well. Okay, that's the first thing. And I actually didn't see that in the checklist of the new features, interestingly enough. So speaking of the checklist of new features, let's get over to that. So what's new? Now, I've culled this list down. There's more than this. I just want to be clear, there's more than this. And the only reason I culled the list down is because I'm only going to show you things. I'm only going to talk about things I can either show you or explain to you, or that I thought would be interesting. There is a huge list of changes. I'm not going to cover every single one because frankly, most of you guys would get bored with that if I went through every single one. So what I've done is I'm going to go through the ones that I thought were interesting, my opinion only, nothing more than that. And I will give you what I'll call a skim list. I'll just touch on them. But more importantly, what I've done is if you look in the description of the video, there are 2 links in there for you. One of them is a list. It's a link to 2.11 Release Candidate 1, so you can go look and see for yourself what the changes are. And I also provided a changelog comparison with the full changelog. So if you want to see every single detail, it's there for you to cover. I'm not going to do it in the video because, frankly, it's video and people just wouldn't be interested in it. It's too much detail. All right. So that said, let's get into it. New features. And I'll cover these new features. I'm just going to give you the summary, then we'll go through them. Okay. We're going to go through the radio and we'll see. Okay. So new features: support for next generation radios based on H5, H7 microcontrollers. That's big news. Now you can't see that because that's a CPU thing, but it is big news. And the reason for that is because that's going to bring a whole new generation of radios to the forefront, right? It's a much more competent CPU, more powerful. So that's on the way. And now they've got the pipeline, the piping, the plumbing in to allow use of a much more high-end CPU for the next generation of radios. So that was a very cool update, in my opinion. When adding telemetry sensors, you can also see the percentage when you're adjusting the ratios. So that's kind of cool if that means something to you. You can see what percentage change you've induced in the ratio, which is fine. The ELRS Master CRSF Trainer option to use ELRS Backpack Relay head tracker data as inputs. Cool thing about that is imagine flying your plane with your head. Think about it. You look, the plane flies. You look up, it goes up. You look right, it goes right. Huh? Interesting, right? Because now what you can do is you can feed telemetry data from your head tracker into your mixer, which is what allows something crazy like head-tracked aircraft pilotage to work. Pretty cool. ELRS 4 support for optional arming method. I just did a production video on that. No, it was a live stream. I just posted that video. I'm not going to go into great detail. I will show you so everyone's aware. But keep in mind, it is Express LRS version 4.0. And it's still in experimental stage, so it's not ready for flight yet. But It's there. The feature works. I've seen it on the radio. It works. So that'll be coming when ELRS 4.0 drops. Okay. Haptic on power can now be disabled. Kind of cool. Nice little feature. Radio can be configured to automatically power off if left inactive. That one scares me. Sticky logical switch state can be configured to persist across reboots. That's very interesting. And I already found a problem with it, but we'll talk about it. Even shorter power on and off delays. So if you want a power off delay on your radio, I set mine to 0, but if you want the power off delay, you can do that. And it's now down to a half a second. So if you want to do that, you can set the half-second delay. And then finally, the precision setting for mix delay up and down, in addition to precision for slow up and down, was added in 2.10. And I'll show that to you as well. So let's see. There are a couple of others related to the color LCD I didn't have a slide for, but I'm going to go ahead and cover those as well. We'll do that in the radio because I can show you those things. Okay, so but this is the kind of the big list. I thought it was kind of interesting. Now, in terms of skim list, I'm just going to cover these because I don't want the developers think we don't appreciate their work. So I'm just going to hit the skim list real fast. Number one on the skim list, widgets can now have up to 10 options. If that's meaningful, I guess, for a developer, that's good. I think that has to do with sizing. There's now USB joystick support for Android gamepads. You can now use uBlock's native binary protocol rather than any NMEA only if adding a GPS to your handset. There's been some updates to Lua that allow the same Lua compiled files to run on the radio and the computer. See, this is things that a lot of people aren't going to be like, well, whatever. And then for radios with customizable switches, you can now easily create a virtual 6-position group. That's kind of interesting. I can't show you that because I don't have a color radio with 6-position, customizable switches. So I can't show it to you, but it's out there. Okay, that's the skim list. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at the radios. So we're going to start, I'm just going to do a tour of the radio, and then I'm going to go down the punch list at the end of the color LCD features, okay? So we'll do that first. Now, what I have here, just to kind of make sure everyone's up to speed on what's happening here, this radio is 2.11 release candidate 1, and this radio is my production radio, and it's actually only got 2.10.5, not 2.10.6. .6 is the latest mainline production version on EdgeTX. I think I can zoom in just a little bit, right? We can zoom in. That better? That's a little better. Okay, so 2.10.5, this is my production, this is what I fly with when I'm at the field. And then, of course, Precious over here is the test radio. All right, so that's where we're starting. Now, we're going to start with the system, and we're just going to work through it. And one of the first things that I've noticed, and I mean, I love the EdgeTX guys. They're fantastic, but it's like we're schizophrenic about the sizing. Because notice on the right-hand side, there are only 9 tools. But on this side, the buttons are now smaller because you can see there's now a gap at the bottom when you have 9 tools. On this side, I have 9 tools, and there's no gap. But in other instances, the situation is reversed, and I really don't understand it. I think they just need to, they got to settle, right? And I got to be honest, I like this format better because when you're at the field flying and the sun's out and, your adrenaline's going and you're trying to do something real quick on your radio, I like the bigger buttons for touch. This, not so much. I don't like this as much. I like this better. But you'll see in other cases where it's crossed over. So they got to get aligned on that. That's one correction that I'd say needs to happen is we need more consistency on sizing. But anyway, regarding the tools, it's not really relevant what tools you have. There's no functional change because these are all scripts not related to the firmware. So I'm going to skip over that. But I did want to show you the sizing. Okay. Next on the firmware browser, one thing that I really appreciated, and I think I probably feel like a monkey with a football on the old version that is much improved on the new one is this. So, and I think it has to do with the fact of how we operate our phones, right? So if I press on this firmware button, see the pop-up comes up, rename? Right? That's kind of cool, right? Now, if I press on this one and hold it, nothing pops up. I'm sitting here holding it like a monkey with a football. Nothing's coming up. I'm waiting for the menu. It doesn't come. But it selected that field. But if I go back and... there's no pop-up at all on that one. Oh, so that's why. Now let's go into the firmware. Now we'll try it with a file. Okay, so there's the bin. I'm long pressing the bin file. Nothing's happening. Now if I press it again, now I get the pop-up. Over here, if you long press a folder, you get a pop-up. But then if you go into the folder and then just long press the binary file, like that one, it brings the pop-up. So this is much more natural to me than this. I like this. This is a nice improvement. I like that a lot. That feels much more functional. Okay, so that's that. Next thing we'll do is go over to the system settings. And again, you can see, here's what I mean about crossing over. Remember what I said about crossing over? On the tools menu on this one, the buttons are real big, remember? See? They're real big here. But over here, the buttons are tiny. And now over here, they're big again. You see what I mean about crossover? It's like, come on, there's got to be consistency. I think the tools buttons ought to be the same size. So whatever, it's just, it is what it is, my complaint. Okay, now we've got sound, variometer, haptic, alarms, backlight, GPS. Those are all the same. Now we scroll up a little bit. We'll see enabled features, managed models. That all looks the same. And then we get into the splash screen. So it looks like the buttons are all the same there. I see the same. And then, of course, up top, I skipped over date and time. That should be obvious. But let's start with the buttons and see what's going on, if there's anything new in each one of these. So there's sound, no key, volume. Yeah. Notice the hash marks right here, how they put the color break. Before, they put a little tick mark up here, which you can see. That gives you an idea of scaling, like how much room there is on this thing. This gives you an idea of how many steps there are, right? That's the idea, is how many steps do you see. So if you want to change your beep volume, for example, you know you have 1, 2, come on, 2, 3 steps, right? So 3 steps. And that's all this shows you over here with the little line break. So it's the same 1, 2, 3 steps. Just go 4, 5. Let's go all the way to the edge. No, it doesn't. So that's it. You get 3 steps. So it also gives you an indicator where to hit the screen when you're pressing the button. So anyway, it's a small graphic change, but it's just, the idea is it just shows you how many steps you have. Okay, so we've got volume, beep length, beep pitch, no changes there, wave volume. And again, notice the spacing. You see how wave volume now is all the way down here at the bottom, and wave volume here is still reachable. See what I mean about sizing? It's like, it's different. It's different. It changed. They changed it. And then background volume and background volume. So no real differences there. Under sounds, variometer, that button. See, it's harder to hit that one. This one I'm much faster. I'm actually much faster with the bigger button because I don't have to be as focused. I don't see any changes in variometer. And come on, go back. And then haptic and haptic. We got alarm, length, strength. In the drop down, I don't really see any, nope, nothing different in the drop down, so nothing going on there. Nothing new in the haptic settings. Alarms. We've got, yep, some changes here. Battery low, you got your battery low alarm, inactivity alarm. Sound off, that's fine. Check RSSI and shutdown. And then new one, check on trainer shutdown. Check trainer on shutdown. So that's a new feature. That's not, see, that's not in the list. They don't write every single thing in the list. It's just a summary. Okay, backlight. We've got both for mode, inactivity timeout, on brightness, off brightness, and alarm, and that's it. So no changes there. GPS, time zone, adjust RTC, coordinate formats. We've got DMS and NMEA, so no changes there. And let's see, enabled features. These are the same. I looked through them. There's nothing different in enabled features. And then on managed models, there's a slight change where you have quick model select, which is cool. And then label select, that allows you to do single or multi. So you can say, I want one label or multiple labels. And then the other cool thing they did is under label matching, they added an and or. So if you have multiple labels selected, you can say it needs to match all labels. That's what all means. It's and. It means this label and this label and this label, right? And then the or would be match any. So it can match this label or this label or this label, and you'll get a match. So that's a cool little add for the managed models there. I like that. Okay, under splash screen, 1 second for splash screen. I don't think they changed anything there. It's, yeah, 1 second's the minimum. Or, well, I think you can do enable splash or turn it off, right? I thought there was a way to turn off the splash. Oh, I know how. You just delete the splash file. That's how you do it. If you don't want a splash screen, you just delete it. You've got startup sound, power off delay. This is the one I talked about earlier, where now you've got a half second. So you can choose half second for power off. On the old version, it was 1 second. So if that means something to you, it's there. Okay, and then we've got auto power off. That's a new feature. This is the one I said that scares me a little bit, because what that means is if you set this to 1 minute and there's no activity on your radio, then the radio will shut off. And I suppose I guess if you're a developer, I could understand that because these guys are playing in these radios all the time, and if they're they're going to go do coding for a while, maybe they want their radio to shut off. At the field, that one would kind of bother me. I don't know. I just don't like the idea of my radio shutting off. I'll shut my radio off. So not sure, but hey, you know what? Obviously somebody wanted it. If you don't want to use it, just set it to 0 and you'll be fine. It won't shut off, right? So that it's just an option. It's EdgeTX. That's the way we roll on EdgeTX. It's an option. You have the option now. So you can have your radio shut off if you want. Okay, after the auto off, we've got power on and off haptic. That's new. You don't see that on this one, right? That's not there. And what that allows you to do is turn off your haptic motor during boot. So if you don't want it to rattle when you turn on, then you can turn that off, which is kind of cool. We've got now we're down to this, we're matched up again. So I'm going to reset the screen so they are aligned. Now we've got owner ID, country code, voice language units, PPM units. Interesting thing on this one with PPM units that's new is it looks the same, but it's not. There's a nuance here. If you click that, notice you've got 0, 0.0, and then now US, which is really cool. So when you have 0 or 0.0, that's percentage. And then this one did not have an option for US. You only had precision. So let me show you the difference, okay? If I select PPM US on this one, now when I go into my model monitor or anything where you see a measurement, what you're going to see on the screen here is US right here. You see that 988? So if I move my aileron, for example, you can see that I'm getting a PPM US value now instead of a percentage. The percentage is now relocated over here. And on this radio, we had PPM US up here. That's been there. But you look in the mixer and you see percentage. So the cool thing about this is it's up to you. It's up to you. If you want it to show you PPM US, you can. If you want it to show you percentage, you can. Other radios don't do this. This is why I love EdgeTX, because now there's just no more argument about it. It's over. Argument's over. You get whatever you want. And it's a really cool little feature. So very smart. And you can go back. If we go back in here, where was that? That was in system setup, right? That was in system setup under precision. So if I go back now and hit PPM US and set it back to 00, and then hit my model button twice, that'll bring up the monitor. That's what you used to see, right? So PPM US is up here on the top, just like on this radio. It's the same. And you got percentage back here. So that's cool. I think that's cool. You know, that's really nice is setting up flight controllers like Betaflight, iNav, Rotorflight. They all like to specify PPM US ranges. So that's handy if you're using a flight controller. So I think that's kind of cool. Unfortunately, I think it's only a radio setting, not a model setting. That would have been nice if they would have made that a radio setting, because then you could go in on a per model basis and say, I want to see percentage or PPM US. Maybe something in the future. Maybe that's something they can add in the future. But PPM US, there it goes. So you've got US there now. That's cool. Nice. I like that. All right, let's get back. Let's get back to where we were. Go back into radio setup here. Scroll down to the bottom. PPM units. PPM units. Looks like the screen's a little bit dimmer. Let's see if I can get them a little closer. Okay. All right. So PPM units. There we go. Play delay. If you guys aren't familiar with what the play delay button is, it's not a new feature, but I'm going to explain it to you anyway. If you have audio files assigned to a 3-position switch, so this is SA up, SA mid, and SA down. If you have an audio file assigned to each one of those and you don't have a play delay, what will happen is if you go from down all the way to up, then it'll play the middle one and then the higher one. By adding a play delay in there, what it does is it skips that middle one. If you skip, it'll wait to play it for 150 milliseconds. So if you don't stay on that middle position for 150 milliseconds, then it won't play it. So that's really nice if you want to say if I have low rates and then high rates, then I can just go to high rates immediately and it'll just say high rates. If you don't use a play delay, then what'll happen is when you skip over, you go all the way up, it'll say mid rates, high rates. Okay, so that's what that play delay is. That's not new. I just figured I'd explain it since we're looking at it. Okay, USB mode. This is the same. You got joystick, storage, and serial. I don't see any changes there. And then rotary encoder mode is normal, and default channel order mode, that's all the same. So no changes there. I didn't see anything there. In the theme editor, I didn't see any changes, so I won't spend any time there. And then on the global functions, I didn't see any changes there. If you hit plus GF3, we'll go down to the bottom and hit plus, and we'll add GF2. So you've got trigger, function, value, and enable. No changes there. I don't think they added any differences here. You see the same switches, trim switches, radio features, clear and invert. That's all the same. So I don't see anything different in global functions at all. So we'll skip out of that, and we'll go over to trainer. There is something new in trainer, and I want to cover that. So in trainer, if we go back to this screen, is it this screen? No, you know what? It's not. I digress. It's in the model settings. We'll cover it in the model settings. Okay. So the trainer, I don't see anything different here. You got, the multiplier is gone. The multiplier is gone. They took that out. But in terms of options, you got off, add, and replace. Off, add, and replace, that's the same. I really liked it when they went to off, add, and replace because they used to use the equals, colon. It was terrible. Much better solution now. So anyway, you can do your mapping from the trainer radio. That's where you do this. And then in the hardware page, let's see. I'm just going to scan through this real quick. Check RT. The top three are the same. ADC filters the same. Mute if no sound. Internal and external are the same. I didn't see anything different on those. Then we have USB VCP. You have options for off, telemetry, mirror, Lua, and CLI. So you can, I guess, turn it off, the VCP. Before you could either choose telemetry, mirror, Lua, or CLI only. So now you can turn it off if you want to do that. And then under calibration, see again with the sizes, they did it again, right? Now this side's small and this side was big. So the reason I say that is because you got 4 buttons right here. So I went through all of the buttons. I didn't see anything different about those. So I'm not gonna make you guys watch that. There's nothing different that I saw. And analog down here, same deal. I went through the menus. I didn't see anything different in the menus in here. And then on the keys, I didn't see anything different as well. So they're the same. Everything's the same there. And then, of course, the information screen. So that's the system side of the house. That's the radio settings side of things. Now we'll take a look at the model settings. So we'll go back to the main screen. We'll press model. And by the way, I wanted to point something out to you guys. One of the features they said was that the graphics were quite a bit faster in the new version. And I purposely didn't say anything about it. I just went through all of those settings. And frankly, I personally didn't see a performance change here. However, it's very possible in the H5 and H7 CPUs that we will see a change. So I'd like to, believe them and say, okay, if they say it's faster, I believe that. But I haven't, from a functional standpoint, I really haven't seen it, right? It's been like the same. I haven't really seen anything different. Okay. So we're on the model setup tab. Model name is the same. Labels, let's do the labels and take a look. So labels, they kind of look the same. I can pick multiple labels there. That's fine. I don't see any problems there. That actually feels fast. Well, let's try that. Nope, that feels pretty fast too. I can't spot the difference. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now here is something new that's kind of cool. And this is a long time coming. I'm really happy they did this one. So on the old way, if you wanted to do a model image, you click that, and if you had a model image, the file, this is called a file pop-up, you had to scroll all the way down, or you could go all the way up, right? And you couldn't go reverse. It doesn't start at the bottom. So if you had a file that started with Y and a bunch of files on here, you had to scroll a lot like a yak, right? On the new one, this is a cool feature. If you click on this, check out what they did. Isn't that cool? So now, and think about this if you have sounds. We're going to check the sounds later. I didn't check the sounds. It'll be a surprise to both of us, or all of us. But on the model image name now, you've got the selectors A through D, E through H. So at least you can kind of get where you're going really fast. And right away, I got to U to Z. So that's kind of cool. Or if you start with a number, 378 extra, whatever, it's there. Or you can clear the filter, or you can hit all. Right, so very, very cool. I like that. That was a nice touch. Very nice touch. This is what I love about these guys, man. They're very thoughtful on that front. Okay, so also notice the ADC filter is gone. No ADC filter here. So when they do that, that normally means they moved it to someplace where they think it makes more sense. So notice over here we've got our ADC filters on. Over here it's gone. So we'll find it. Don't worry. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you guys, so you don't panic. If you're an ADC filter junkie, I'll help you out. This is where you come, man. We're all about community here. Okay, now look on this screen. We've got 9 boxes. They're all the same size. Do you see what I mean? It's like, it's kind of all over the place. I hope they just standardize on this size. That'd be great. That's what we need. Okay, so internal RF, external, trainer, that's all the same. Timer's the same. Pre-start checks, trims, throttle, that's the same. We'll scroll up and we've got enabled features, USB joystick, and other. Let's go into other, and there's your ADC filter, right? So see what I mean? When they make changes like that, it kind of, they normally relocate it somewhere else. Also notice this one didn't have other, and now beep when centered is now here. On the prior version, those were under pre-start checks. So you would have center beep, and that was at the bottom of pre-start checks. And I think that kind of makes sense because center beep has nothing to do with pre-start. So why would center beep be in pre-start? I think it's just where they stuck it. So in this case, it works out because that's kind of other. It's something else you do. It's not really in any of the other categories. So I don't have any complaint against that. That seems reasonable to me. Okay. All right, so timers. I went through the timers. There are no differences in the timers that I was able to discern. Look, you can see the bar looks a little bit longer. I don't know. Are there more options? Silent beeps, voice haptic, beep snap. Nah, nothing different there. Yeah, this is pretty much all the same. So nothing different in timers. Pre-start checks. We'll skip down to pre-start checks. Display checklist, same. Interactive, yes. Throttle state, custom position, switches. Pots and sliders. So I'll turn pots and sliders on. And we've got those. And then again, center beep is gone. So that's the reconciliation between those two. We covered that. Trims, I didn't see anything different. You've got trim steps, extended trims, display trims. That's all fine. Throttle, I didn't see anything different. That looks the same. And then enabled features, these are the same. I went through the list. I didn't see any changes here. Everything looked the same to me. And then USB joystick, there were some new options. That's one of the ones I skimmed over because I can't share, and that's that they had an Android USB joystick mode or something, but I don't have any Android stuff, so I can't show it to you. I wouldn't know anything about it anyway, but you got classic and advanced, so those options remain on both. And then in advanced, under interface mode, you've got joystick, gamepad, and multi-axis. I kind of thought we might see something around about Android in there, but it didn't work out that way. Maybe you have to put it in gamepad mode. I'm not sure. But anyway, you can go and make your joystick setups in this screen. All right, so that's it for joystick, and then other we covered, and that's it on the model setup page. Flight modes, they are the same. I looked through the flight modes. I didn't see anything different on these. They're identical. This looks a little different because I don't have these two turned on, but now they are, so that's the same. Nothing to see there. Keep moving, people. Inputs, there was something. Let's see. We'll click that. I wonder if I can long press. See, now that's a difference, right? Because before, when we long pressed on the file manager, we got a pop-up. This is what makes me schizophrenic about the radio sometimes. Like, you guys remember that in the file browser? Like I said, look, if you long press, the action list shows up. On this one, it doesn't. So I hope they do that because now you have to click and let go, then the action list shows up. Okay, so we'll edit and we'll look and see there is something new in here. And it's going to confuse the hell out of a lot of people. I'm just telling you right now, it's going to confuse people. But I think it makes sense. So first off, the input name is there. Line name is there. Source is there. That's the same. Let's make sure these drop down. The source should be the same. Yeah, it's the same. No changes there. It's the next line that's going to mess with people, and it's the weight. And this has been one of those things that has bothered me from the dawn of time on EdgeTX. And it's the weight. So notice the weight, it says GV. So if you press GV, you can bring up a global variable for a weight, which is fine. You know, if that's what I've done videos on how to utilize that with rates and expo and all that stuff. But if you unpress it, then you're back to a value. And if you press max, it goes to 100%. Okay, fine. Now let's go over to this one and look. Notice I have weight of 30, and now the button has changed. It's no longer GV. It's now source. So if I click source, look at that. That's an input. Input to input? Isn't that kind of weird? Now, that would probably, I don't know how that would work out, but input to input, weight is 100%. The input is the aileron itself. So you can change, the point is you can change the weight and derive the weight from anything. So for example, look, there's a pot. So I'm just guess. Oh no, that's a global variable. Here's a pot. So I'm just going to guess here. That's my volume pot. Look at that. Look at that. You remember the video that I did on how to adjust this? Now you've got a pot right there that you can adjust your weight on the fly with no editing at all. So what they did was they allowed, this is a big deal. This is a big damn deal. They allowed you to use any source on the radio that you want. You can use a stick, a pot, one of the radio features, min max, bat, time, GPS, trim switch, a switch itself, a logical switch, a trainer input, telemetry value, a global variable, or another input, or a stick. That's nuts, man. That is freaking nuts. This is, I mean, look, you wanted it, you got it. You know what I mean? This is, you will not get this stuff on any other radio system, I guarantee you. I just, in 1 second, I set my pod up here to control my weights on my radio for aileron. Look at that. So if I dial this down, now my weight only goes that far. Isn't that cool? That's freaking cool. I don't care who you are, that's cool. All right. Next up, offset, same deal, right? Offset, same thing. Oh, and by the way, let's go back. Let's click back to source. Now, if I hit max, it goes to 100%. We'll save that for later. 100% on the inputs. Okay. Offset, you can do the same thing. You can pick a source and you can have whatever source you want as an offset. That's going to be, boy, does that open the door for some programming. Like now I have to make a whole new set of videos, I guess. Switch, that's still in there. Nothing new there. We had that on this one. No issues there. And then curve, expo, a curve value. And then again, you can pick global variable on this side, or you can pick source on this side. And in the source, your global variables exist. So you didn't lose anything, but you gained a ton with this new functionality, man. That is absolutely nuts. Look at that. Let's do that just to mess with you. All right, look. So let's say, for example, I want my expo. I want my weight to be, I love this kind of stuff. Okay, I want my weight to be over here on this knob, right? So I can change my weights there. And now I can change my expo with this knob. See that? It took me no time at all to do that. Like one little setting and I'm done. That's really cool. Really cool. You can adjust your expo on the fly. I've shown videos on how to do this, but it's complicated. It's a lot of effort. So for that reason, I never really did it. Now I can tell your Radio Master, I hope you guys give us more pots because, you know, that'd be cool to have pots to control weight and expo on the fly. I mean, I just think that's really cool. Am I the only one? I don't see anyone in comments going, holy hell, what the hell? That's amazing. I don't see comments. I'm curious. Okay, fine. We'll move on. Click the gear icon, gear icon. Whoops. Gear icon. Side, trim, modes, all the same. No changes there. Fine. Okay. We'll get out of inputs. That's it for inputs. Now we're going to go to mixes. And I'm going to show you guys something on mixes. So if I click on this one on the right and hit edit and go down to the gear icon, notice there's a multiplexer option there. Right now, I'm going to pick this one, elevator, and hit edit, go to the gear icon. And they freaked me out a little bit because at first I'm like, wait, why did they take away the multiplex option? But the reality is, if you only have one mix line, which is what I had over here on the elevator, right? My elevator only has one mix line. If you only have one mix line, then you don't need a multiplex option. So, see, these are subtleties, right? These are subtleties. You don't need it because you're not multiplexing anything together. You only have one mix line, right? Okay. Now, and also I want to point out that that's not the case over here. On this one, they all have one mix line, but when I click on it and hit, whoops, I didn't want the insert before. I'll click on the aileron, click edit. If I go down to the gear icon, that multiplex option is still there. So again, see, these are little subtleties that they don't normally spend a lot of time talking about, but they're there. Okay. All right, enough of that. Now we'll talk about what's new. You've got your trim. You can turn trim on and off, which is fine. Warning on and off, which is fine. Delay up, delay down. But now you've got delay up and down precision. So if you look on the old one, you had slow up and down precision right here. And you could set that to say, I want 0.00 or 1/100ths control over precision on slow up and down. That did not exist. The wait or delay precision did not exist prior. You only had the slow precision before. You didn't have the delay precision. Now you've got delay precision right here, so you can control that down to 1/100ths as well. If that means something, like if you have a door sequencer or some complex thing, you know, that's kind of cool. So you got those are the only real changes there. So you've got the multiplexer logic that they built in, where you have add now only on a line where you have, and let me prove it to you. I'll click on this one and hit edit and go to the gear option. There, now you got multiplex add just like before. But it makes sense though, because this line is actually a mix line, right? This is something that would mix with this one. So that makes sense that they have it. And also notice iconography, very important in EdgeTX. Notice there's a little plus sign right there. If I click on this and hit edit and then go to the gear icon and change that to multiply, watch what happens to that icon. You see how that changed from a plus to a multiplication symbol? Okay, right? And then if you change it to the replace, it's going to change it again to a colon. See the colon right there? So iconography on EdgeTX, super important. You got to pay attention to that. But I thought that was brilliant, man. That's a subtle little thing, but it shows me the kind of attention to detail the EdgeTX guys put into the firmware. Very, very subtle, but very important. Okay, that's it for the mixer. I'm not going to bother you with outputs because I saw nothing different in outputs. Sorry, got to get caught up on this radio. Nothing different in outputs other than the rule on PPM US still applies. So notice right now, if I move my aileron, I'm seeing percentages. I mentioned this earlier. If we go back to the system menu and I set this to be PPM units, if I set that to be US and then go back to my outputs, when we look at that, see how it's now changed to the PPM US value right there? So over here, we're still at percentage, okay? So that PPM US thing takes effect anywhere that you have those values being displayed, all right? That's it for that. No other changes in outputs that I saw. Curves, I saw no changes at all. The curves look the same. If you edit these, they're the same. So no differences in curves at all that I saw. And then global variables, I saw no differences. Logical switches, I didn't go through every function. It wouldn't surprise me if somewhere along the way there was something hidden in there, but I can tell you that, you know, I just did some rudimentary stuff and there was no difference in the logical functions. But I do want to show you something really, really cool that they added. And I told you earlier in the video, it's an area where I found maybe a potential problem. So it has to do with this concept of a sticky switch that persists. So the sticky switch persists over reboot. So check this out. I made a sticky switch. I'm going to edit this. And in that edit, I've got a new option there called persist. And in this sticky switch, you do not have that option. That option is not, it's not present. I can scroll up and down. It's not there. That's a new thing right there, persist. So on L01, the persist option is off. And in L02, the persist option is on. Okay. Now I have SF1 right here. That's this switch up here on the top left. And I'm going to activate it. And you can see that they both go hot. Okay. Now I'm going to deactivate it. And they both go off. Now, what you might use that sticky switch for, I don't know. What about cycling your gear? Your gear only has 2 states. So why not use a sticky switch and cycle your gear? Right. Now, you might decide that that's the way you want to do things. Now, here's the important part. What happens if I use a sticky switch to cycle my gear and then I have a radio reboot in flight, an emergency mode, say, for example. Now, when that radio comes back on, the persist mode says, hey, maintain the state you had when you reboot. So I'll go back now to my sticky switch. I skipped right over it. And notice that one of the sticky switches is still on. That's the one that was persist. The other one is off. But here's the issue that it could potentially create, is that now I cannot have these synchronized. When I toggle that sticky switch, they're no longer synchronized. So now doing the opposite thing from each other, right? There may be some programming goofing off we could do with that, but the only way that I can think to resolve that issue is to make sure the persistent one is off And then if you reboot the radio and then turn it back on, you have to wait for it to reboot. And then we'll click on the model settings and go back to the switches. Now they're both synchronized again. And if I hit SF down, now they're both going on and off at the same time. So I'm just pointing it out. It's just a new thing. It's a persistent sticky switch, kind of a cool little feature. But be aware, if you use that in your programming, just understand what you're getting yourself into, right? That's all I'm saying, is that it persists now over a reboot. Now, there may be some really neat places to use that. I'll have to give it some thought. Landing gear came to mind. Maybe arming state maybe came to mind. That might be one, like if you wanted to use a momentary to arm, you could do that. And again, remember, it only matters over reboot. That's the only time it takes effect. So in the event you have an emergency mode situation, or you got it on a waypoint mission and you want to change your battery out, you stick a new battery in, your state would be maintained across the reboot, which it's fascinating. It's a fascinating concept. Okay. That's it for that. I don't know of any other changes in logical switches. If I do, I'll take a look and let you guys know in a video. Okay. Okay. Next up, special functions. I didn't see anything new on special functions. We'll just click on that. We'll click on that. We'll add one. And you've got trigger, override, channel, value, and enable. Trigger, function, channel, value, and enable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, same. And also notice the spacing again. See, look at the spacing. See how enable is all the way down here on this one, and it's up higher on this one. That's what I mean. They gotta standardize. I guess it doesn't matter unless you're comparing version to version, but it's just a thing. Anyway, trigger values all the same. It's got the same filters and controls, so cool there. I don't see anything meaningful there. Functions, I did not go through the whole list. I guess we could take a quick look. Oh, they're in alphabetical order now, right? How about that? We learned something new. Adjust, override, trainer, back. So they're now in alphabetical order, which that's good because they weren't before. Clearly not before, right? BG Music's all the way. Who the hell came up with that one? That's just one of those things I think that now what we need is that same filter list, right? We need, because look at the list. That's not that long though, I guess. But why not have this filter box over here on the side where I can say, give me, A through B or whatever, that'd be cool. Everything else looks to be about the same. So we did learn something new about special functions. I told you guys we'd learn together. We'd be surprised together. I'm going to go back to the mixes real quick because remember, I told you guys on the sources, let's do aileron. We'll click that. We'll click this aileron, click that. Now, remember, you have GV here. If I go to this field and I hit max, it goes to 500. If I go to this field and hit max, it goes to 500. Okay, fine. That's the same. I'm going to set that back to 100 because that's a production plane. Now, we'll do this. We'll set this back to 100 as well. But you also, in your mix, again, you have the ability to use, you can identify a source. So that's the thing I wanted to show you is you have the ability to identify a source in the mixer as well. I think I skipped that. Okay. So we'll get out of there and we'll go back to the last couple of screens. We're rounding third and heading for home here. Special functions we covered, custom scripts. Great for tools like RotorFlight. So if you're running the Express LRS enhanced telemetry, you need the RealFlight Express LRS telemetry converter running in the background. That's where you do this on the custom scripts page. And then telemetry, I don't have any sensors on this one, so I can't show you how to edit, unfortunately. But there is an option. Let me see. You know what? I bet I have another model that has sensors. I'm just going to bring up another model. I'm pretty sure I have one that has sensors in here. Let's try the Avani. That one should have sensors. Oh, look. Hey, there's another. Did you see the red line for the control warning? That was with the rates set to high. All right, my battery's almost out, so this video is going to end soon one way or another. If I'm going to go in and edit the sensor and edit the precision, this is what or not the precision, the ratio. If you go in here and add value, see how the ratio percentage shows up there? That's what we were talking about earlier. There's a percentage increase showing you what percent change you make to the ratio on your telemetry offset, your ratio. Okay, that was the thing on telemetry I wanted to show you. Okay, and that pretty much covers it. So I'm going to go back to the list. I'm going to skim down real quick and make sure I got them all. Sensor ratios, got it. Trainer option to use, oh, the trainer option, that's right. That would be in this setup here, trainer option under mode right there. You got master CRSF. So if you want to bring in, my brightness is too high, isn't it? This one, the brightness is too high. Sorry guys. Let me turn the brightness down. It's too high. There we go. That's better. Okay. In the trainer section, that's new. And you do not have that on the other radio, the other firmware. Although I'm going to tell you guys something, I'm a little disturbed and I'm going to have to find out about this. The trainer option had an option for S-Bus module, and that's gone. We have master jack, slave jack, master CRS. I don't see S-Bus, which is disturbing. Now, maybe if we can use CRSF in for the trainer, fine. You know, that would probably be okay. And the idea that I have there is I'm kind of wondering if we can take like an external module and put it in receiver mode. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But you know, on my wireless trainer setups, I was using the S-Bus module mode. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. I need to find out if they took away the ability to use S-Bus for an input, because that's a great little system, because then you can just plug a connection down here on the bottom. But we were only using one line. This has got 4. So maybe we can use a CRSF tool and do master CRSF for training, which would be fine. That'd be acceptable to me. But I am a little worried that they took S-Bus out. I'm not sure why they did that. We'll have to check into that. Okay. Arming method, optional arming method I showed. The haptic on power disabled I showed. Radio can be configured automatically powered off I showed. Sticky logical switches we showed. Shorter power off state we showed. Precision setting for mixed delay we showed. Okay, last thing I told you we'd cover were the color LCD features, and that has to do with the radio interface performance. We talked about that. I really haven't seen it here. I can't tell by clicking around that anything's been done differently. But what I do want to show you is I'm going to go back to my test here, and I want to show you what they did up on the top. You may have noticed it already. Notice the size of this widget on the top bar. You now have control over that. So if you hit the if you hit the telemetry button and then the top bar view, and then you'll notice you've got a widget size option here. You do not have that on the prior version. So in the widget size right here, you can apply different widths. So you can say, I want box 1 to be 2 boxes wide, and I want box 2 to be 4 boxes wide. So when you add a widget up there, actually, I should have stayed in the widget screen. Set up widgets. Now you can see that this box right here, see the little dotted line that goes 4 boxes wide. So you've got control. You can put a single widget in that box. Kind of cool. So, yep, top bar widget size. The file browser pop-up we covered. There is an option now for Lua widgets to go into app mode. So if you use Lua tools like iNav, the iNav Lua script, that can go into app mode, which will allow direct inputs from the widget into the radio. And then, of course, the PPM US can be used instead of percentage values. So that covers all the LCD specific stuff. I will do a black and white video. So if you got a Boxer, hang tight. I'll do one for the Boxer as well. So we'll get to that, you know, in an upcoming video. But that's it. Those are all the new features on EdgeTX 2.11 release candidate 1. At least all the new features I thought would have wide interest. Again, in the description of the video, I put the full change log. So if you want to go see every single thing they changed, it's in the description. Just click on it and go look for yourself. And then there's also a link to release candidate 1 for 2.11. With that said, I want to say thanks to the EdgeTX developers. Thank you for your hard work. I for one, appreciate everything that you guys do to bring such an amazing firmware out for us to use. This is really spectacular. I love what you guys are doing. And regarding the visual consistency, I'd say out of everything that I saw, the only 2 concerns I have is, you know, let's get that visual consistency worked out. And that S-Bus trainer option, that's pretty good. That gives a lot of options for receivers, but maybe CRSF is meant to replace it. I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll comment. In fact, I almost 100% guarantee one of the developers will comment as soon as this video is over explaining what's going on with SBus. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'd love it if you guys would subscribe because it helps the channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know new videos hit the channel, and smash that thumbs up button and give YouTube, tell YouTube, hey man, this is a good video. People should watch this. And that's all I've got for today. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Get out there and fly something.